Well, hello. I'm not quite sure. Oh, I know why I'm so blue. It's because I have I have my studio window open, which is nice because it's sunny out, but it's changing the light balance. Anyway, that aside, how are you? Welcome to Virtual Collage Jam for Monday, January 29th, 2024. Not used to saying 2024 yet. Hello, Nelly. um, Yeah. So when I set out, my glasses are sitting funny because of my headband here. When I set out to set the prompts earlier earlier this month, I thought, well, snow day, that's kind of a fun prompt. So I'll pick like late January when it's likely to be snowy. And global warming has something different to say about it. So there we go. Doesn't mean we can't still collage on this topic, right? And of course, as always, although there is always a prompt for Virtual Collage Jam, it is always an optional prompt. So if you have something else you would rather collage on, about, that's totally cool. So, yeah, Nelly says it's like spring today, and it really is. It's you know, it could be minus 15 and the sun could come out and it'd be great. So it's really lovely to have the sun out. But yes, it is. It's very mild too. So the little bit of snow that we have here is melting quickly. And so, yeah. And I should mention that it was Kim's plan to join us. We were going to set up in the other studio and do a full tag team. But she had some materials to prepare for Humber College, where she's doing a guest teaching gig. And and when I went to bed, she was like trying to get it underway and get down to it for so that the teacher could have it for Monday morning. And when my alarm was going off, she was just coming to bed at 7:30. So, so she's in bed now. So she sends her apologies, and so yeah, she won't be joining us because she is hopefully fast asleep or at least deeply resting. So, hey, Cherie. um, Of course you did, Cherie, because you see the prompt and then you do 10 or 15 collages before you get to the jam, right? Yeah, no, it is. I think it's a good prompt, whether or not we're actually experiencing it firsthand. I mean, that would make it better, but we can still use it, right? So yeah, only two. Oh, wow. Were you unwell, Cherie? I am going to shift to the overhead camera. In fact, I don't see any reason why not now. I've been doing a morning class on Mondays for the last few months, so it's always a bit of a mad scramble to get an idea together, and so I have a drive-by idea, and I'm just going to see how it works. I often find that those are the best ideas, though. I was watching because I have a relatively recent interest in fashion. I was watching a reality show on TV about fashion, and one of the designers gave the participants advice to don't overthink things. Go with your first thought. Your first thought's usually your best thought, and I have to say that bears out a fair bit of the time. When I was going to design school, we were taught to really go to push ourselves past our first ideas and to come up with as many ideas as we could, and then spread them out in front of us, basically, and evaluate them. But and sometimes the first idea is like hackneyed and cliched, and you have to get beyond that. And I'm not saying that still doesn't happen to me, but it is true that I think with experience and sometimes of necessity, especially in a commercial world, your first idea is like, okay, yeah, I think that'll work, and it's due. We're behind already, so let's do that one. So all of that to say, I'm going to be working with the first idea that came into my mind today. So I will shift over to the overhead camera and let's get this party started. Let us know in the comments what you guys are. Are you Do you have an idea for working with it? Are you working with the prompt? Are you working on something else? Um, and let me know what you're snacking on and sipping at the same time. I am always, if I can be found without coffee, that is a very rare situation. So it is my dark roast black as I usually work. So the camera is going to go dark just while I get it to the overhead position. So don't worry, it's just so you don't get seasick. And we'll just switch it to the overhead, and then we'll be back. So famous last words as he struggles with the cameraman. But yeah, when I was younger, I always loved. I mean, who amongst us didn't love a snow day, right? Certainly had them. Certainly had them more when I was younger than I do now, than we do now. But switch to my close-up glasses because this is going to take some cutting. And it was always great if you got time off school and you could play in the snow. That was like always a double win, right? Not only were you getting out of school, but you were getting to play more. So that was always awesome. So my idea, such as it is, is to cut holes into an image and then slip a white piece of paper underneath such that the holes that I cut look like there is snow on top of something. And so I had a couple of thoughts. One is like to put a dusting of snow on like a branch that otherwise looks like it's in springtime, or on the roofs of a town. That would take a while because there are a lot of them there. And the other thought I had, I don't even know whether this is going to work, but you know, got to try things. And the other thought I thought would be very funny is if there was snow indoors. So the one thing that I haven't figured out, but maybe I'll be able to figure out by what I slip underneath is, so for instance, if I want to cut out the top, well, that would actually be, yeah. So there are some things that I have to figure out that may not work, but like the shadows on the snow would have to be something again slipped underneath so that you know, if there's a cast shadow on the snow, it'll look more convincing if it's not just white, right? But I'm just going to launch in, and I'm not going to let worries that it might not work stop me. So we'll see how it goes. Let me know what you guys are cooking up. It may not work, but we'll try. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? So, and again, because I've been swamped of late, I haven't managed to see much of what's on our excellent Facebook page. So I'm gonna have to go there and check it out, see what you guys have been posting. I'm sure it's been great. And I'd be curious if anyone who's with us today sent in their collage for the label prompt from a couple weeks ago, because it sounds like that's going to be a cool exhibition. If you haven't sent it in, I think there's still time. It needs to be postmarked, I think, or needs to arrive by at them in was it Washington? I can't remember, Washington or Portland, by the end of, I think it was like the 29th of February. So I think there's still time. So that would be good. So let's see. I think I maybe should have started out with the branch because that's simpler than, well, no, you know what? It's a case of whatever you start out with, it always ends up being more, you find it's more complex than you thought. So that is just the nature of what one takes on, right? So I think in this case that I'm just convincing myself, or trying to, and I'm going to stop doing it, that that it's trickier than it actually is. And it may be, it also may, like, may find out that this is, after I try to do this, that it's a bridge too far, in which case I'll try something else. If all else fails, I can cut, we can cut and fold snowflakes, right? Like I did for the visual for the stream, right? But the paper snowflake. I used to love doing those as a kid. And I think my parents were the ones who taught me how to do them. I mean, a lot of the ones you see kids do are just squares folded in quarters, right? So you end up with four sides rather than six. But my parents were were good or too fussy about making sure that we knew how to fold them in six, so that we had the six-sided snowflakes. And I wonder that I'm a perfectionist and too literal. So how would snow fall into a glass? I think it would probably be sitting in the glass, wouldn't it? Maybe that and on the rim. Not sure how I'm going to show it on the rim. The trick is not to end up like with it all falling apart because I'm connecting too many pieces with snow and then have everything else in the page fall apart because I've cut too many connecting holes. So not sure whether that'll work or not. We'll find out. Oftentimes with ideas like this, I think you need to sort of do a test run and see how it goes, and then sort of oftentimes you learn from that and then improve it. And that may well be the case with what I'm trying to do here. So we'll see. What are your ideas for snow day? I mean, Cherie's probably posted her two already, so I should go and look at what they look like. And how about you, Nellie? Are you working with this particular prompt, or are you thinking that maybe you'll try something else, or? trick I'm trying to figure out here is, and I guess this is the case with snow. Um, if I were to put snow on everything on this, which is sort of what I was thinking I was doing, is that I'd end up with a lot of white and only very little hints of what it was landing on. And so I might end up just like cutting out way too much white. So I bet that it's working reasonably well in areas like the tops of the chairs. But I think once I get onto the table, I might be in I might be in trouble. So I'm gonna switch over to this branch and see if I can make this branch work better. It has less overlapping things, and it has a darker background. Obviously, some of it's fairly light, but it's darker than white will be. And it still may not work, but let's give it a whirl. I feel like my odds are better with this one. I might be wrong. Only one way to find out, right? There's a bit of like for this idea that I'm trying to make work. It takes a little bit of imagination to sort of figure out, okay, well, if there's snow on top of this, where would it be, and how much of the would it cover, and how much would it show, um, and so there's artistic license too, because why? Because as long as it sort of, it also has to hold together somehow. That's something I'm a little, regardless of what subject I'm concerned about. I feel like I can make it work. Famous last words. Because I've cut out this first sort of area of leaves, and there's only a small amount of paper still holding it together. And I think I may have just cut it. No, I haven't, but it's fairly tenuous, let's put it that way. I'm just going to put a little piece of tape on the back to help it hang together. Very small piece of tape. Oh, right, and I accidentally printed my photographs two-sided. I'm like, why am I looking at that image? I put that one aside. And I remembered, oh, right, I printed them on two-sided by accident. So, let's see whether anyone else has joined us. Look at all these comments. Holy moly, guys. Awesome. Cherie says she's been playing with Gambin's cold wax and thought it would make a great snow in a multimedia collage. Yeah, cool. I trialed a small one, like it, and will complete a larger one incorporating what I learned. Cool. And sorry, Kathleen, I see you're high now, but hello, belatedly, because I've been had my head down on my work. Welcome aboard, Kathleen. Nice to have you along. Nellie says, yes, I started last night with thousands of swatches I've collected. Hardly any is about winter. I'm so fearful of winter, I simply don't feel like expressing it. And that's totally fine. It's sort of in my DNA. Although I have to admit I don't like the cold anymore. But it is definitely something that I remember fondly, especially from childhood. Um, and Nellie says, "But with your prompt, I picked up the courage." Oh, well, and if that feels like something you want to do, Nellie, absolutely, but don't feel obligated. Um, and Nellie says she's choosing a white, cold, wet, textured paper with a gray sculpture. Oh, nice. Hey, Annie. Annie says, hi, Cal. It's so sunny out, so Pup and I stayed out a little long. Yeah, I bet. It's great to be nice day for a little or not so little walk. Um, nice to be able to join again. Nice to have you along again. And Cherie says, I got to get a snowy owl image in. Oh, yeah. When I first worked, first out of college, I worked at Key Publishers. That's actually where I met Kim. Um, as a We were both designing magazines, and I remember it was downtown near sort of like front and church. The offices were, and I remember there was a big hubbub because there was a snowy owl outside. So someone's office window looked out across the. It was like the offices were through at least two or three different buildings and all sort of connected like a rabbit warren. And so some of the office windows sort of looked out across roofs of local buildings, nearby buildings. And there was a snowy owl out there, and it was amazing. So yeah, an urban snowy owl. I think we also saw a peregrine falcon one time too. So Kathleen, are you collaging along, or are you just sitting in? Have you got something on the go? Are you playing with the theme or not? Um, hey, and Philippa's joined us. Hey, Philippa. Hello. Watching you on TV today. I needed to rest. Fair enough. I know you're a busy girl, so yeah, take a break, have a nice hot drink and a snack, and just chill. I am trying to, for those of you who have just joined us, I'm trying to cut this otherwise springtime image to look like it has snow on the various leaves. We'll see whether that works or not. But by slipping white paper underneath and cutting the sort of snow, cutting the shapes of what I think the snow might look like on top of these leaves. And those shapes sort of overlap and intersect, and hopefully I won't end up cutting it apart too much that it falls apart. But after starting with the, like, I think it'd be so cool to do it with this one where it looked like it snowed indoors. But I think because everything was overlapping so much, it would be very hard for it to work. Whereas I'm hopeful that this branch will be a little easier because it's sort of spread out in sort of one spray or one long layer rather than overlapping different things. So I'll cut a few more things out, and then I'll slip some paper underneath it, and we'll just see if it's we'll test the concept, see whether it's actually working or not. Need to get at least a little further along before we can even really tell whether it is or not. And that would also have, this one would have snow sort of here. Says he, as if he knows what he's talking about. I'm not convinced that I do, but I'll give it the old college try to see if I can make it convincing enough that it gets the idea across. Fake it till you make it, right? I'm trying to brush something aside. I'm just realizing, oh, that's actually in the image. I thought it was a scrap paper, but no, in fact, it's one of the details of the image. I really have to stop taking on such fine cutting, given the age of my eyes. What was I thinking? Oh, right, I wasn't. All right, so that's sort of in front of it, so it would go across that. Be landing on this branch, bending down there. Shadow area underneath is important. There would be snow up here as well. All right, so let's do a little test of concept. Cross your fingers. It'd be better if it was a pure white than this, but I don't know. It doesn't look like snow to me. It just looks like white highlights. It's interesting how that is the case, right? I think it's because it's maybe not soft enough. They're too sort of precise. Snow tends to soften things. It falls in mounds and clumps, and so maybe it's too crisp. Something to think about. I think I'm gonna go a little further along and just see how it works, but I might shift gears and try a different idea. And I'll check in with the chat in a minute or two. I'm going to make my cuts a little lumpier. Whether that will actually translate or not, we'll see. Still looking pretty sharp to me, but yeah, well. All right, I think I'm gonna go with a different plan because first of all, it's driving me a little bit crazy doing the cutting, and I think I don't mind doing a lot of sort of fine cutting for good effect, but I'm just not feeling that the effect is as good as I was hoping it was going to be. So plan B. Not that I made a plan B, but I might just start playing with something with some of the typical kinds of wintry colors. Play with some blues. Obviously lots of white as well. And maybe I think I have at least a couple of wintry reference images in my blue drawer, which is good because it can come in handy. That's a gel plate or brayer rub-off sheet, but just the colors that happened on it. I think that's why normally I pile up more layers before I put one aside for collaging with, but that one is pretty great the way it is, isn't it? It's got a cool feeling right from the get-go. Into some of these letters. So. Feeling like what I'm digging out now is going to be more, who knows what it'll be more of, but more intuitive, I think, was what I was thinking, or as far as I've done any thinking. And so we'll see how that goes. All right. Check in with your comments. Hey, Judy. How are you? Judy says, hi, Cal. I was trying to join from my tablet, but couldn't access the chat. Oh. Well, I'm glad you figured out that you could do it on your computer. That's good. I'm not sure why it wouldn't work on the tablet. That's annoying, though, isn't it? And Cherie says, hey, Philippa, the current mixed media collage you posted is perfect for the theme. Oh, I'll have to check that out. That sounds awesome. I pulled some sort of wintry type imagery, and then I also was thinking, oh, maybe I could like, maybe my idea of like putting a coating of snow on something, if it's simpler like a letter, maybe it would work better, like just a dust. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm just gonna be the opposite of what I was being with that previous, and be much more intuitive and just see what happens. I often do not work. I often work maybe. I need to practice working more intuitively. Let's put it that way. I think that's a better way of. I was going to say something detrimental about myself, but that isn't a good way to be. So I'm going to. I think what I'm going to do is try. I'm going to try a couple of things concurrently, because I have several different kinds of material and some sort of nebulous ideas. And so I'm just going to start 2 collages, because I often find that that's beneficial. Have 2 different ideas going on, so everything doesn't happen at once. And that's because I saw this image and I thought, oh, maybe what I'll do is like paste the summertime, or at least not a winter image of this white pine. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll just like tear some pieces of paper and put them on there like slabs of snow. And then I thought, okay, and I also want to use this thing from this. And I thought, oh, bring them together. And then I thought, you know what? They're going to be the sort of start of 2 different pieces, I think. And then we'll go from there. So that is what I'm going to do. Rather than trying to force them both into the same piece. I think they'd be interesting together, but I think they I want to see enough of each one of them that, unless I was working with a bigger substrate, I think they need to be their own. The start of 2 different collages. So I really like this one. It's so simple, but it already kind of feels like a frozen lake with like a tree line or a horizon line or a cliff over there or something. It already feels that way, and that's kind of neat. So that just maybe what, Cal? Maybe enough. That's kind of fun. Shortening the tree a little bit. It's so fun, and I think I'm going to do it. Hopefully stick. And so, Annie, are you collaging along, or you often draw with us, don't you? Are you going to draw or collage today? Or are you just chilling, or what's up? Let us know in the comments. Where we miss Kim, because I get looking at images and thinking, and then I realize I haven't been chatting to you poor folks. And so I apologize. All right. Some sort of frosty wintry shadow kind of images here. I had little snippets of that might be kind of snippets are kind of fun, right? Because they don't tell the whole. So they let you sort of figure things out a little bit. What now? I can tell my gears are sort of ticking as far as what I'm thinking about composition or whatever, because I tail off. Not intentionally. So I'm tearing some pieces very roughly to feel like a blanket of snow on this white pine. And I feel like already it's sort of more playful, a more playful way of getting at what I was originally trying to do with the with my previous idea of like cutting, which was too finicky. So this is going to probably come across as sort of graphic and campy, but I think actually that's probably better. So and tearing versus finicky cutting has already made me a lot happier and less hung up about it. So it's a win. Shove this one aside because I think that's sort of the beginning of something that could work, but I'll work on this one for a few minutes and come back to that. Something else I like about this is it's a bit like painting in that you can build it up and decide, okay, that's far enough, or I want to go further, or just putting pieces on as I go. Back in my graphic design days, we'd have to do Christmas promotions way ahead of Christmas, right? So we'd be doing like mailings for Christmas magazine gift giving, and we'd be working on them in July. So it was very a little bit strange. Let's put it that way. And that's kind of, I have a bit of that feeling now because yes, there is some snow out there, but it's definitely looking more like March than January out there. So I need some thinner blankets of snow to play with here. So tear this one in half. So Annie, in response to my earlier question, says she's sketching today following Doodle Wash prompt list. Doodle Wash, that sounds fun. Is that like a monthly challenge like Februage or something? Cool. Annie says, I wrote my sister into sketching with me, but it might have been a mistake. Sis has an art degree, lol. I I would imagine that your sister is very kind about that and is not the kind of person who would who would who would lord it over you. And really, it's always a win when we're making art, and regardless of how much knowledge, as long as we are having fun while we're doing it, we have no reason to be insecure, Annie. I know, I've seen it. It's good stuff. All right, I can tell I've gone silent again. Sorry about that. Good thing they're not hiring me for like radio or something. No, Cal, but you are supposed to be doing like a live stream. Oh, right, right. Yeah, better keep talking. Eh? All right, all right. I'll try and keep going. What I'm going to do is look over at my monitor in a minute and just see. This is sort of in front of me and I'm not seeing it. So let's see whether it's actually, it doesn't look realistic, but I didn't expect it to. And yeah, so that's kind of fun. I still want to put a little more snow on for sure, but it is sort of having the effect that I wanted it to. So that's good. Which is kind of like a simplified slabs of snow on a white pine. And I have to be careful because I know that what I'll do is that if I spend too much time at it, and I can already feel it's happening a little bit as I'll get more and more granular about it, I'll start out nice and loose and the details will get more and more fussy. So I am going to try my best not to let that happen, or to let that not to let that happen. I'm gonna probably put just a very few more pieces of slabs of snow on, and then I will call that it. So yeah, one along that part for there for sure, starting down there and ending there. That's good. And then probably, yeah, one or two more little lumps in there. I always think I'm ripping something more or less the right size, and then I realize I'm seeing it as I'm ripping it like twice the size it needs to be. Whittle it down a little bit. I kind of feel like that's probably enough. And since I've had my attention on this one for a little while now, I'm going to put it aside, bring the other one back, and so I don't get stale on that one. I'm going to pitch just some of these tiny snow bits so that I can see what I'm doing. I feel like maybe I started out with a sort of a centered layout on this one, centered composition. And I'm thinking maybe it should be less so. So I'm going to see whether that is the case or not. And ultimately, I'm not sure whether this paint chip belongs in here or not. It might be a case of one idea too many, but it might not. You know, I really like this sort of area, and I kind of feel like I want to integrate a little bit of collage into it, but I don't want to lose it. So I don't know whether that's possible, but I'm going to play along that idea and just see whether it is. Because, you know, something like this might be kind of fun. And it might be enough to have some of each. It might be a good way to get some of each. So what I'm thinking here is that I want to have these little bits of photographic stuff, but not so much that it loses what's there. So see whether that works or not. And because it's collage, I can decide yay or nay. Yeah, so I just was looking at what I had there and thinking, you know, about just feeling that this stuff down here was too heavy. And when I took it off, I felt much happier. Because I think what I like about this piece is that it is quiet down here and it's got that dark band. So I don't think this is enough. So I'm going to still play with bringing stuff down here, but lightening it up a bit to maybe be less strong, less bold, less dark, and see whether that gets it to where I want it to be. No pun intended, because we've got a B here. So but that feels better. feels less overwhelming. Balance is such an interesting thing. Why some things work and why some don't. All right, just digging down in my pile of snowy things to see what else I've got here. That's interesting how those seem to. I now covered over that thing that I love so much, right? So I'm gonna have to think about that. But it is interesting how those seem to play really nicely together, don't they? Interesting. Part of it, I think, is this sort of grayish blue that's tying to that. So I wanted more of this to show. I could cut her out, but I'd lose that. I could maybe cut some or a lot of her, this sort of hazmat suit that she's wearing, out, so that this shows through. That might be kind of interesting. What is the story? I have no idea. And yeah, so again, advanced, but not yet figured out. Bring back my pine situation here. I'm just looking for some sort of interesting next thing to add to this. Maybe my paint chip situation will make a return. Maybe it won't. Kind of feels like if I'm going to put paint chips in, they should tie more directly to the colors in the piece. Not being too literal at all, am I? But we'll see. Well, I need to think about that. So I'll check in and see what you guys are saying. So, so Annie says of her sister and her, they are both very competitive. Oh dear. And thank you for the encouragement. You're very welcome. Cherie says it's a great effect. And sorry, I'm not sure which because that was a little while ago, but hopefully I'm glad you like one of them anyway. That's great. Cherie says, I'm just praying the matte gel medium dries clear as promised because it looks like a whiteout right now. Yeah, it will. It will probably, if it's matte, it might dry clear, but sort of a bit frosted, right? Because it will have a little bit of opacity to it, not a ton. Annie says, I like the darks around her also and keep the B. Yeah, I'm thinking both of those things. So in fact, they may even be the beginning of a third piece rather than going into that scene. So this is how I end up in those situations where I've got several collages started and none done. But be that as it may, sometimes that's what's called for. So. And that's just the way it ends up. So I'm just playing with some possible alignments down here that sort of align with this tree. And I'm thinking that's kind of fun with this sort of chunk of winter and how it looks like the gray of the clouds as well. And that's kind of interesting. So that might be the next thing, and then I'll figure it out from there. I was thinking something like that. Yeah, that might work actually. I don't want to lose this. I'm often looking for alignments, and I kind of like that one right there. So I'm gonna go with that. I don't want to cut the bottom off this. And then align it like that. And then it's okay. So is that better cut off or left? I kind of feel like it should obey that edge a bit. So what I might do is do that after I've glued it down. Somewhere in this detritus, I know I have a ruler. All right, ruler. Just thought sort of ripping it to sort of feel like that same edge but continued might be good. And now, do I still want to come under this piece, so I better peel it up a bit so it doesn't get stuck down until I decide whether I want to do this or not. I think what it is that hole is bugging me. And so I'm looking for solutions for that. And I don't want to just have a solution for that doesn't work. This is kind of fun. I like this one better. Because what I'm trying to do is have a little bit of a winter feel, like go between sort of winter and non-winter in this subtly. And so I kind of like the way these sort of further distant trees and this closer tree, but they sort of run along and sort of connect to this horizon line here. So I think that's going to be a happier thing. And it moves again from summer to winter or from warmer to colder. In an interesting way, so. And also it addresses to some extent that fixing that hole that I was not enjoying. It still seems a bit patchy, but it's not done yet, so no need to worry about it. I'm going to bring back my swatch strip that keeps getting beat up more and more and see whether I like it. I don't like it going over top of this nice area, so it may not belong in this collage, and that's fine. I'll encourage myself not to force it. And see whether this idea that I just had is nuts or fun. To bring in a little upside down mountain action. Blue the sky is very different. And that shouldn't bug me, but it does. All right, I think it's time to switch them up. Put that in the back burner, bring these guys back to the forefront. All right. We shall see whether this works. But sometimes you just got to try things. And this is definitely one of those times. So what I'm gonna try is I'm gonna try cutting out some selective things. Right now I'm thinking, well, I'll cut out the brightest part of her hazmat suit and see whether having this show through, I'll try and leave some shadow, either shadow areas or everything beyond this scene. I'll try one and then the other and see how that goes, whether that works. I think it's possible. I'll try and leave some of these shadows because I think that's interesting. So maybe it'll leave. Yeah, well, we'll see. You can always cut it back more if it doesn't work. There's kind of a seam running across here, so I'm just going to take advantage of that. And then this sort of shadow area, I think I'll also include. And I think I'll cut this red tag thing out and maybe put it back in. We'll see. We'll see whether it works. Didn't cut down the edge of the seam, this zipper or whatever it is. I think it's the zipper. So does it look weird or good? Both. So I'm thinking that this feels to me like maybe this is the main architecture of this piece, and it's a quieter piece, and I might not put much into this area. And now it's a question of like, do I want to add any other stuff? So I'm going to play with that, but I kind of like, I like this, so that may be all it gets. Wow, time is flying. I just thought, oh, I better check the time because I've been collaging for a little while, and I notice it's almost the end of the Jam Classic. And so I better check in and see what you guys are saying. And I will also, I kind of feel like I don't want to be, I don't want to stop right away, but I should, I will have to stop soon, obviously. So this thought that maybe something funny about like a page number. So I'm wondering about something like this along the bottom. With just a little bit of darkness that maybe ties into the darkness in the at the bottom of the B. So we'll see whether this works. All right. I'm feeling like it's too much, so I'm going to try. You know, it still may end up being just too much, period. But let's see if I turn it off. Same width as the B, more or less. Try it above and below. Still not sure about that. I think sometimes less is more. All right, let's see what you guys are saying. You're very welcome, Kathleen. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you're still there and or you can hear me saying goodbye. I hope you had a good time. You're very welcome, Nellie. Wow, Nellie made 3 pieces. Nellie, I think must you are frantic, Nellie. I know, but I think it's great actually. You get cooking, and I think that's so amazing. I have been known to do that, and then sometimes I just get too I slow right down. So so I'm really glad that you had a really good session, Nellie. That's awesome. And I am gonna work for another couple of minutes and then I will sign off. And if you have to leave us, I understand because we're at the end. Thank you for joining us if you are leaving. And feel free, if you haven't got a plane to catch, to hang around for another few minutes and then we'll wrap. I am not sure whether I like it, but I think there's something there. So, all right. And yet again, a few started and nothing finished, but hey, maybe I'll, after I sign off, I'll play with them a bit longer and see what I can come up with. So, all right, so I'm gonna just switch to, so we're going black temporarily while I move over to sign off. Ooh, get it out of the overhead camera position here. And over here. There we go. All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. And read the last few comments. So Nellie made 3, as I mentioned earlier, and Cherie made 3. 2 are postable. Awesome. Cherie, that is, you were cooking. That's awesome to hear. And Nellie said, still wish I had your sense of design. We learn a lot from your trial and error. I'm glad somebody does. I kind of feel like I'm floundering sometimes, but sometimes design, design senses can cut both ways. I'll just put it that way. Like, it's great to have, and it can make you sort of like, it can handcuff you a little bit, like trying to like be too manipulative rather than intuitive. I think when it serves me best is when when it's not at the forefront of my brain, when I'm sort of like working quickly enough that it's influencing me, but it's not, I notice the slower I get, the more I try and the more I second guess. So I think maybe I should just pick up the pace a little bit. And Annie says, thanks for sharing your collage thinking / process. Always fun. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Annie. That's awesome. Judy says, thank you, Cal. I've been doing a little painting. Awesome. Cool. And please give my best to Kim. I absolutely will. Thank you for that. And I'll pass that along. And Philippa says, thanks, Cal. Loved watching your process. Oh, thank you, Philippa. And I hope you're a little recovered now from your, had a little rest. Always a good thing. And now, we have a collage jam in a week. I'm just checking my calendar to make sure that that is the case. Unusually, because in February, we have Family Day coming up. And so that we don't end up with like and there are a couple of other like Kim's at Humber and so on. So to get a couple in February, I'm having one next week as well. So watch for that. And then I think the next one is towards almost at the end of February. So, so we'll see you in a week, unusually, rather than in 2 weeks. So until then, keep on collaging. And next week, sorry, I should have left my calendar open. So next week is the February 5th, and it is the Februlage prompt, which I am blanking on right now. But it is on my website and you will see it on Thursday for sure, if not before. Okay, you're very welcome, Nellie. Take care, and we'll see you in a week. Bye, guys.